Welcome to the True That Show, a show about lifepreneurship presented with wit, humor, and banter by Deborah Drummond and Caroline Blanchard. A lifepreneur is someone who's living life the way an entrepreneur runs their business. All in. Lifepreneurs are rock stars. Lifepreneurs are people who are brave, who risk, who live full on, who think out of the box, who win this thing called life. Lifepreneurs are around us every day. They are everyday heroes. Join Deborah and Caroline, these two stage-walking women who tell it like it is. You'll learn from the most incredible lifepreneurs who will inspire you to be the best version of you. Now here are your hosts.
Welcome back, everyone, to the True That Show. It's such a pleasure to have you back. Today we have another amazing speaker, and oh my goodness, you're in for a treat. It's a beautiful mixture of fashion and a bunch of different subjects that we will integrate. But what I want to ask you today, Deb, is first of all, how are you, Deb?
I'm great. I'm gigging it today. How about you, East Coast?
Oh, it's good on the East Coast. Good on the East Coast. It's funny, eh? I'm looking forward to the day that I will be like, how are you, Deb? And you will just like be, I'm not good. And no.
And I'm saving that for a special. That's a special interview.
Okay, no, but I'm asking you how are you today, and I should ask you like, who are you today? Because don't you feel like we are adapting continuously to our environments, our world, and everything that is changing? So I feel that if there was a questionnaire, every single day we could tick different boxes. Well, in my case anyway, not that I have multiple personalities, but on the other end, I kind of do. Because I adapt to everything that is going on. But which box would you check today?
That's a great question. Don't you find that more and more as we're all waking up in the morning, it's like, it's another day. It's another day. It's like, we've gone through this great big and are going through this great big change and shift. And you know what? There's so many boxes, isn't there? Like we have so many boxes for ourselves. And then there's so many boxes that the world has for us as well. And it just reminds me of a conversation that we just finished having. So today, honestly, when I woke up this morning, the box that I clicked was entrepreneur, right? Because where I'm at today in my business, as you know, I've got this great big vast goal that is, on a 7-day countdown. And so today I did entrepreneur. And then as I was getting ready for our interview today, I realized there's some things I need to do for my son. So I kicked mom, right? And then I thought about taking some things over to my daughter. And so then I was clicking, yeah. So I think that we have, that multiple personality disorder that you talk about. By the way, don't ever read the definition of that, because I did one time. A friend of mine, I was just hanging out at his place and he's a doctor, and I started looking at through his psychology book. Don't do that. Don't do that. Because I was like, I do multiple personality disorder in about 24 hours. But anyways, I think kind of where we're getting at is some of the boxes that we have given to us. Some of the application forms, we were talking about that earlier, and I know that our guest today is going to get into some really interesting, topics and conversation around the kind of how people put us in boxes, where that puts us in our life, how that affects our mindset, how that affects the community, society, and how they see that. And there's a really beautiful bridge that's going on. And so one of the boxes I talked earlier about really for me falls in two categories. One is, okay, look, I'm in my 50s. And I remember filling out application forms to work. I know we're all kind of stuck there, but bring it back. There's an application form that I used to fill out, right? When I was a teenager and even into my 20s. And there was this category at the bottom. And it was really a category of different types of people based on race, creed, and gender. And I literally needed to check off that I was a woman. It was a different box on the application form. And my biggest thing when it comes to that is that still to this day, 2021, there are applications that I fill out or things that I'm filling out. And they want to know, am I a Miss? Am I SS? Am I a MS? Am I MRS? Like, am I single, divorced, or married? And it's like, that, whose business is of that? Anyways.
Wait a second. I am divorced, I'm separated, and I'm single. What would I pick?
You're a tripolar. You're a tripolar woman.
I am. I do own those 3 titles right now.
That's right. I think there's a shirt. We could probably there's an idea, you guys. Let's make a cool shirt. And we could brand that and we could do a fundraising. So anyways, there's many boxes that people put us in, and there's many boxes that is difficult not to own when society puts you in there as well. And I think that's a big one. And I really went through that a lot with being the mother and the parent of a child that's had some challenges in relationship to, how society sees learning, and how that's really affected what's gone on in my home, in my world. And so anyways, I don't want to get into my story too much, but I know what it's like to be there. I also know what it's like to be a mom. Even when my children first started having challenges with learning, like the resources I had to go and hours on the computer and having to get them myself. I mean, it's very different now. The world sees things very different. And I know that we have a long way to go. And honestly, after sharing and talking with Mindy, a couple of weeks ago, I left that 1 hour conversation feeling like my world had been moved in. And it was like, because I've been on the other side of digging for information, trying to find. And when I even found out about Mindy through Doug, which was we just did that great interview with Doug. And he's like, I go, there's a woman doing what? She's doing what? Because of course, my son, who's had his challenges and he's had his boxes, and he's still in some of what people consider those boxes, loves fashion. So I was elated before I met this cool chick. You know what I mean? I was like, there's someone doing something. I don't care if they're doing it badly. I want to meet this woman. And clearly she is not. So
why don't you introduce her properly?
Thank you, Caroline. I'm just going to go on and on and on about Mindy. So anyways, I'm going to let her have an opportunity to share here. We've just had some time to all get together here. And Mindy is doing some pretty incredible, I would say it's an incredible movement. Because when you think about someone who's starting to break the ice and then, that ripple under the water, I would say that she's broken a lot of ice. And as most everyday heroes, has had the experience on both sides personally, right? Personally. And so the inside ability to be able to create something where it is so adaptable to this community of people that really need personal adaptation, yet a kind of cultural acceptation. So I'm going to pass it right over to Mindy. She's going to blow you away with what this woman is doing. And so Mindy, if you don't mind coming on and sharing a little bit about what you're doing, and honestly, how did you get to be doing this?
Well, thank you so much. It is such an honor to be on the show and to be able to spend time with you both. So again, my name is Mindy Scheier, and I'm the CEO of Runway of Dreams and Gamut Management. And I was really that little girl that dreamed of being a fashion designer. That was my only thought in life. I went to fashion design school. I worked in the industry the second I graduated college. And it's one of those things that life absolutely had a different plan for me, as where my visions were that I was going to be the next Betsy Johnson. My world changed when my middle son was born with a rare form of muscular dystrophy. He really struggled with everyday tasks, one of which is the very thing I love more than anything, and that's getting dressed every day. For Oliver, it was a daily reminder of what he could not do. Buttons, zippers, hook and eyes, putting pants over his leg braces, tying his shoes, putting on his shoes. That it was something that, as you mentioned, from both a personal vantage point and even professional, it was heartbreaking to witness and then go into work and see that there was people with disabilities weren't even being considered as part of the consumer base. So when Oliver was of school age, and we had to kind of think about what he was going to wear to school every day so that he'd be able to go to the bathroom on his own. He was my second child, so I certainly didn't think about these things when my daughter went to school. It was how cute was her outfit going to be the first day of school. For Oliver, it was he was going to wear sweatpants because that was the only way that we felt comfortable that he'd be able to manage. And when he was 8 years old, he came home from school and said, Mom, I want to wear jeans. I don't want to wear sweatpants every day. And why don't I wear jeans like everybody else gets to wear? And it was a true kick in the stomach moment that here again, I was in the fashion industry, and I needed my 8-year-old to remind me of how critically important clothing is to who you are as a human, how you show up to the world, your confidence level. So that moment just completely opened my eyes to the fact that if Oliver was struggling with that at 8 years old, how in the world did our 1 billion people on this planet who have a disability, how did they manage clothing challenges, and how did it affect their worlds, and everything from going to school to going to an interview to going on your first date to showing up to an important meeting. All these they're milestones in our life, whether it's on a daily or just things that happen during the course of your life that clothing has such important value to. So this was back in 2014, and I decided to take my background and have a small goal of changing the fashion industry to be inclusive of people with disabilities, and Runway of Dreams was born. I took a year actually to stop everything that I was doing to only do research, because I only knew my world with Oliver. I didn't know what anybody else's world was with any other type of disability. And so I went deep into this population and really was able to extrapolate out critical information that would allow me to develop modifications that could be utilized in mainstream clothing to make it easier for people with disabilities and truthfully to our world to be able to dress themselves, to be able to wear the same things as everyone else. And I'm excited to say that in 2016, we partnered with Tommy Hilfiger and developed the first ever mainstream adaptive clothing line, which is now Tommy Adaptive. We have now worked with Zappos on Zappos Adaptive, Target, Kohl's, Stride Right, even LVMH, Sephora, all different brands in the fashion and beauty industry that are now realizing that people with disabilities are the largest minority on our planet and need to be considered part of our mainstream world.
I got to ask, because it sounds like Tommy Hilfiger was the first to come to the table. Tell me about that. Tell us about, so what was it like? Did you approach them? Did they approach you? Like, was it this completely new concept where, like, what was that about? Because, it's easy to kind of come onto the trail when the trail's been forged, but what was that like?
It's such a great question and something that I do love to talk about, because when you are approaching an industry that is classically known as being exclusive, and suddenly you are explaining to them that they're missing out on an entire population, it was really like pushing a boulder up a mountain. Like the fact that I had already approached a couple other houses, other brands, and their feedback was immediately, well, if no other mainstream brand has done this, and it was already, again, 2015, 16, then there must be a reason. So therefore, good luck to you. Love your gumption. You're awesome, but we can't take a chance on something that hasn't been proven before. So when I was introduced to Tommy through mutual connections within the industry, and I really planned for this meeting like 2 months in advance. I bought every piece of the collection. I bought 2 of them so that one I could keep the same and one I modified to be able to show them that if I could do this, they certainly could do it and do it better. And that just by modifying or making tweaks to what already exists, they could be including millions and millions of people into their customer base. So that meeting was so game changing in the sense that here I was talking to arguably one of the largest global brands that we have, but in the sense that I was kind of telling them that they're missing the boat on an enormous opportunity. And that this was something that, yes, nobody else was doing it, but they could be the first. They could be pioneers to put a stake in the ground and saying, we are going to be the brand that says, yes, we are going to do this, and we are willing to take the chance with you. And thankfully, they did. And they really became the first mainstream brand that ever even considered people with disabilities.
Well, kudos to Tommy Hilfiger. Honestly, I have a newfound respect. It's brand new information to me today, but you know what? You need those big names
You
to
have to.
step up and do it.
Changed the trajectory of the whole mission.
Yeah, and I think that one thing that you're bringing too is like, oh, I wanted to show them how many millions there was to make and everything, but I think that over and above that, you just needed to bring in the issue, because like when I first heard you, I was just like, buttons, zippers. When you don't have the disability, you know, it's not even in the front of your mind. It's like, I don't know if you ever hurt your pinky and had it like condemned for a week. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I never realized how much I'm using this pinky. You know, you're like, but sometimes you need to experience it to know, because otherwise it's not your reality, and it's not. And that's what I love about, you know, all people like you doing revolutionary sorry, it was a good word, but huge thing to actually bring awareness to minorities. And when we were talking before, I really liked one of the things that you said, because I was talking about disability, and you were just like, this is one thing that I really want to rebrand. I want to rebrand disability, because, you know, I'm sure that we're all humans. They have all feelings like us and everything. They don't want to be pinpointed as, hey, you have a disability, because, you know, I promise you we all have one. It's just that some of us hide it better than others. But you know.
Well, actually, you brought up a really good point, in that the fact is that every single one of us is going to be a part of this minority at some point in our life, and it just may be getting old, in that you will no longer be able to use your fingers because of arthritis, or you have an operation that you can't use your arm. Every one of us on this planet is going to experience what it feels like to have a disability at some point in our life. So when you look at it from that perspective, how in the world are we not developing product that ultimately we are all going to need at some point in our life? But to also go back to the rebranding piece, it's so critically important, because people with disabilities, and I say that very specifically, people with disabilities are people first. They have the same hopes and dreams and wishes and likes and failures and strengths that everybody else has, but instinctively they're put into a bucket of, for them, they need to be just, you know, fundraising and doing a nonprofit thing. And boy, that's, you know, such a shame, when the reality is that people with disabilities, and certainly, and since I've been making it my full-time everything, are the most comfortable people in their own skin that I have ever had the privilege of talking to, working with, that we all should be truly learning from. I think about it also from this perspective. People with disabilities are natural innovators. They have to innovate in a world that wasn't made for them. I mean, I see this every day with my son, in that the products that we use as a family, the cars that I drive, the house that we buy, the vacations that we go on, every single one of them, he is my priority to what we do, and everybody else just comes for the ride. So I have to think about the airlines that we go on. We live in a ranch because that's easier for Oliver. The world is missing out on a huge revenue opportunity, as it is so important for inclusion of this population, because decisions are being monetary, buying decisions are being based on this population. And that's, you can't really say that for other minorities, or skin color, or sexual orientation. Generally, major product decisions are not being based on your skin color necessarily, as it is for usability or what will work. If it works for somebody with a disability, it works for everyone. That's such a big concept that the world, I think, hopefully is just starting to comprehend. So yes, rebranding, who people with disabilities are, the spending power, and even just their power as people that have money to spend is so huge.
You know, it's interesting as you talk. I love how you talk about, you know, rebranding and redefining. And I think also a lot of times people will take a look at the person with a disability. And when they hear, and I would love for you to share the revenue that you're talking about, because I don't think I think it'll blow people's minds because they think of the person, but look, here's that person has family, an extended family. And so when I have a child with challenge, right? This is a child with challenge or what have you. My family makes different decisions. Like you said, my immediate family makes different decisions. When you were talking, I got this flash. It was very interesting. So again, I mean, okay, look, you guys, I know you can't see me necessarily because you may be listening to this. I'm not 80, but when I was going to school, I'm a left-handed person. And the teacher actually wanted to tie my hand behind my back so I didn't use my left hand. And my mother had to go to school and fight for that. You think about something like that's just left-handedness, that we were like, oh, you're left-handed. Oh, you have to sit at the end of the table. Oh, you have to use these scissors. Oh, you can't do this. Oh, there wasn't a baseball glove for me. There was like all those things, just being left-handed, and people would not look at left-handed as disability. And I think what a vast shift that we've made, but not. And I think really, please share with us the power of this category of these innovators that you talk about. And, it's even interesting when you talk about disability, because as a mother who's had that issue with people, it's like the disabled part, I think, I don't know, it's kind of disempowering a little bit. Like, I'd love to see that whole thing rebranded. Like,
if anything, the dis is already negative.
Yeah. I know people talk about that. They're like, don't diss me, right? Like, and which is saying, don't disregard me, because diss is like disregard, right?
Yes.
And so anyways, please tell our listeners and our viewers, what kind of financial capacity are you talking about here?
So let me just start again with some of the numbers in case anybody, missed it. But it is estimated that 1 billion people on our planet have a disability. And by the way, that is only people that identify that they have a disability. Mm-hmm. So in all reality, that number is much bigger. It is 1 in 5, actually moving closer now to 1 in 4. And there are even statistics out there that say there could be a time that we have more people on our planet with a disability than not, because it is escalating so much year after year. And so what that ultimately translates into is that it is estimated that $4 to $5 trillion is being left on the table every single year by not including people with disabilities into our product offering, into our public eye, into our entertainment, into everything that generates money. Is astounding that at this stage of the game, we have a huge, probably the biggest white space opportunity that we've had certainly in our lifetimes that is not being taken advantage of. And slowly but surely, when I get, the likes of Tommy Hilfiger and Zappos and Target and major brands like that saying, okay, I hear you. And yes, not only is it the right thing to do, but it's also a business opportunity. Is you don't get those very often in life. And not only is it, again, a business opportunity, but people with disabilities are also the most loyal population, that if they find something that works, not only are they buying it in every color, in every opportunity possible, but they are sharing it. Social media is like the best friend of people with disabilities when they have products that work. They are sharing it, they are talking about it, they are posting it, they are wearing them. And it is just an enormous opportunity that thankfully brands are starting to realize, but we have a huge amount to go. Runway of Dreams is focused on the fashion industry, but again, I'm going to pivot quickly to Gamut Management, that was formed in 2019 as the first ever mainstream talent management company that only focuses on people with disabilities. That's all that we represent. And we did that very specifically and methodically because other industries started reaching out to Runway of Dreams to say, well, we want to be connected to people with disabilities. Delta Airlines connected with us and said, well, we want to be the official airline of people with disabilities. We want them in our in-flight videos. We want them in our ad campaigns. We want to even understand, what does that mean to be the official airline of somebody with a disability? Help us. But that's not what Runway of Dreams did, nor will ever do. So when more of this incoming request came, it suddenly became very clear that there needs to be another business born that can effectively work with any industry, any brand, to say, no problem, we have an arsenal of people with disabilities globally that we can help you tap into to help you understand, how do you become the official airline of people with disabilities? Well, one thing is you engage with them. You find out from them directly, what does that mean? What are the pain points? What are the challenges? And you have them in your in-flight videos and your commercials to show that anybody can fly Delta, whether you are in a wheelchair, whether you have a limb difference, whether you have autism. The huge diversity out there of disabilities can be represented just visually, just in the public eye of who is going onto that airplane. It is essential. So really, Gamut was born to be the support system, to be the consultant, to be the talent manager of a population that has never been considered before.
And you know, one thing that I'm listening to you, and it's what you're doing is absolutely amazing. You know, I raise my hat to you. But creating all this awareness and building all these things as well is also giving the permission to people with disabilities to feel okay. Because I remember my son was born, you know, he weighed 900 grams. And of course, they told me he wouldn't survive. And if he did, he would have all these multiple dysfunctional things. Anyway, we worked really hard. And for the first 5 years, they would do a hearing test. And they would tell me that he was borderline deaf. And I was just like, no, I don't believe your computers, because when I talk to my son, he answers me and he developed his language properly, and he was very inquisitive and he asked 1,000 questions. So I was just like, there's no way this kid is not hearing. But long story short, he has a severe loss in one ear and a moderate one in the other ear. So he doesn't hear well, but he learned how to read on the lips. So that's how he developed everything. But there was always this box, you know, at school and everything. Does your kid have disability? And I never ticked that box, just because I did not want to put him in that category. And, you know, they were like, oh, you need hearing aids, he needs this, he needs an FM system for his class. He did it for a year, and then he went back to just reading on the lips, and he's spent his whole life like that, and he's doing fantastic, by the way, in every aspect. But my point to this is that as a mother, I always refused to tick the disability, because I was just like, my son is not in that box, because I felt like if I would tick it once, it would follow him his whole life, and he would be tagged as disabled. And like, he's 22 now, so let's take that in consideration as well. It's like 17 years ago, but it was something to avoid at all costs, to have your child, you know, well, anyway, for me. And now it's, I was seeing the ad with the pretty girl with Down syndrome, and right now the brand, I'm forgetting the brand, but it's a huge brand that took her, and she's first. Yes, Gucci, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So she's gorgeous and everything, but because she has Down syndrome, it's making a huge, you know, impact. But honestly, she could have been a model regardless, because she is pretty. But I was so happy to see her there. I was just like, finally, finally, you know. But there's this, what I'm trying to say is that there's this two-sided feeling on seeing her on that Gucci poster. It's like, why are we making such a big deal out of it? Because we don't make a big deal out of any model when they get a contract. You know, you just start seeing the ads. And so on that end, it's like, why? It should just be normal. And on the other end, it's like, oh, thank God, you know, the fashion industry.
Absolutely. And I'm so happy that you brought that piece up about ticking the box, because that goes to, you know, what I just talked about that 1 billion is only for people that tick the box. So obviously that is a much higher number, but also it's because of the stigma. Mm-hmm. And that goes exactly to that notion of why it needs to be rebranded. That people with disabilities are just people, and you shouldn't be afraid to tick that box. It identifies who you are, and that your son had a hearing loss. But also to your point about putting the model up and revering and yay and all of that, it's almost a rite of passage. We have to go through those steps to get to the other side, so that someday it's a whole big who cares. Good for her, because she's beautiful. That's why she's on the cover. It's not because she has Down syndrome and we are going to show the world that we're going to be the first ones to have a model with Down syndrome as the it person of Gucci. We will get there, but it's how it has to start, so that then, you know, more brands will start to put people with disabilities on their cover. And then we become desensitized. And that's so important. That's where we have to get to, that people would just look at somebody with a limb difference and say, no big deal. And I do believe it's happening. I think the next generations, the Gen Zs and those that are following them, are so desensitized to, you know, interracial couples, into same-sex marriages, into single moms that choose to just have kids. It is happening, and people with disabilities are just the next, you know, frontier of where and how it will happen.
But you know, you say that, and my 13-year-old, she corrects me so often, because I'm very open-minded and I'm accepting of everything. But I still describe someone, like if I describe a person and she's like, oh, who are you talking about? I will be like, oh, whatever. I'll describe them by their race or by their condition or whatever. And she'll be like, why are you saying that? When I hear her describe people, it's going to be like the tall guy with the blonde hair. There's no race, there's no you know, religion symbols in her description or whatever. There's no disability explanation or whatever. And I can see that, for me, when I see that, it's hope, because I see her with all of her friends and there's no difference. And they're all very different, but there's no difference.
Agreed.
Yeah. So I know that we're kind of coming a little close to time, and Mindy, what you have done has been yet beyond incredible, but I can hear our listeners going, okay, so you've got two aspects to what you're doing. You've got this gorgeous runway, you've got this nonprofit, you've got this agency. How can we help you? I mean, honestly, how can we help you? What can we sit out here do, like as a small business owner, as a purchaser, as a mom who knows some of what you're, you know, I can relate to you as a mom on that situation, like where, how, what? Let us know.
First of all, thank you. I mean, honestly, being on your show is a tremendous help, because everything starts with conversation, right? Learning something, hearing, thinking about, wow, what would it be like to not be able to dress myself tomorrow morning when I get up, or have something in my closet that actually I can dress myself in. That is so critically important. So I would love your listeners to think about that. When you get dressed tomorrow morning, go into your closet or look at what your options are and think about, if you didn't have any options or you were not able to button that shirt, how would you manage your day? How would you move forward? And just, I would love people to learn more about us. Go to runwayofdreams.org. Find out about our nonprofit. Where does the money go? It goes to giving clothing donations to people, new adaptive clothing for those that cannot afford it. because we believe everybody should have the option of having adaptive. It goes to the next generation of designers to be able to give scholarships out to help them with their journey and really get a sense of how important it is to have adaptive. It goes to our awareness campaigns of our big runway shows. We have one coming up in September during New York Fashion Week, that all of our models have all different types of disabilities, ethnicities, backgrounds, and learning more about that. And then from the other side with Gamut Management, which is gamutmanagement.com, I highly encourage that anybody that has a disability, join us, become part of the Gamut. Your voice is important. That's all that we require when you join Gamut. You have to have a disability. That's it. Because we believe everybody has a talent, whether that is having a say in how products are developed for you, being able to be a part of marketing, to be able to be in the public eye, but we have to do this together. So come join us, be a part of the Gamut, learn more from a company, a small business perspective. If you want to learn how to adapt your products, if you want to learn how to include people with disabilities in your own ad campaigns or have people with disabilities become customers, reach out to Gamut. We help you. We are your support system. So those are all options that I would love people to take advantage of. Get to know us, talk about this, think about it, and we can make change happen together.
Wow. Well, that's incredible. Absolutely. There is something there for everybody, whether you've had this affect your life or not. And the one thing that I need to highlight is that I think, when you talk about getting dressed, and because I've seen, someone try to get dressed without being able to put a button on, getting dressed is such a personal thing. Like most of us do it in the bathroom or behind closed doors. And so to even be able to speak out and go, I can't do this. Like this is a personal, intimate thing. And to be able to have your own choice of color, right? Or size, or having a stretch pant because you can't do a button up. I mean, I think that really people have seen that impression. I am so, impressed and thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm going to let Caroline wrap us up today. And
well, I absolutely loved this interview. And honestly, I'm not sure if I learned something because technically I knew, what you said because we heard it somewhere. But today it really hit hard. It's really like, oh my goodness. And I think that people need to hear it over and over again. And especially from someone like you who's passionate about it. And, you faced challenges and you decided to do something about it. And you really, I think, will make millions of people happier because you were the pioneer in doing adaptive clothing. But I think that our next step is, because that's another thing that really hit me today, because I'm French. So I learn words and sometimes I don't dissect them to understand them. I just learn them. It's my second language. And when you guys really, dissected disability, that this in front of ability is by default negative. And I've never heard it this way, but it's always a word I never liked. And that's probably why I never checked this.
Of course. But if I may throw one more in before we wrap up, this is so mind-blowing. But the origin of the word handicapped comes from way back when people with disabilities were only considered that they could be beggars on the street, and they put their cap in their hand. And that is how the word handicapped came to be. And the fact that we are still using a word that has such a horrific origin, we have opportunity here, right? To not only change our vernacular, if we can add pronouns and talk about the way that people want to be addressed, this is an opportunity to, again, let's rebrand. That is not how this population should be described, should be honored by, all of it. So yes, talking about words, that is one at the top of my list.
Well, we'll do what we can to help you with that, because honestly, even me now, especially now that I just learned handicap, I'm not going to be able to call someone like this anymore, but I will certainly be super self-conscious when I say disable someone who's disabled, because it's horrible. It's talking about someone in a negative way. And my whole life purpose is to always switch everything to positive. And, we always say everything you say, your brain is listening. Well, imagine someone being told that always. So yes, that's an amazing step and an amazing goal, but I will, it's good to always have projects on the run, and your voice is definitely being heard, and we should launch a contest on, find a better word.
Love it.
Anyway, Mindy, thank you so much. Everyone who was here today, thank you so much for being here week after week. If you want to hear about any subject, contact us. If you want to contact Mindy, we will put all of her contact information. Deborah, I will let you have the last word.
Oh, she throws it back. This is what we do to each other. Honestly, I don't think there's anything more that I can say. I totally believe in the power of words. And Caroline, as a mom who had the same situation, I refuse to hit that box because of what you just said. I've been in the world of metaphysics, and what you think about comes about for 30 years. And I thought if I ever said those words in relationship to one of my children, that was a name that was going to, and I fought teachers up and down to stop using that word, right? They're like, oh, you have an LD kid. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna, so it is up to us. And I'm really looking forward to the follow-up interview. I would love to do something right before that, that goes off in September, and really just highlight and build some momentum between then. So, you know what, Mindy, I just want to go let me help you take care of yourself. I'm like, I want to send you the biggest self-care package, because I know what it's like to be a parent. I know what it's like to be a mom. I know what it's like to take on a challenge. Me and Caroline both very much know about pioneering. It's what we've done our whole lives, I believe. And honestly, I just want to, part of me is like, girl, get into that aromatherapy bath, and I'm going to send you some nice, good stuff for you, because honestly, you also need to self-care. Pioneering and being the first one out there. So my big shout out is, when you're sending in those donations for these runways, you need to send this woman a bouquet of flowers. Just saying. Just saying. Okay. So with that, we'll look for that follow-up interview, and we'll definitely get the word out. Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.